Hi everyone, welcome to 5 Code Shakespeare Hamlet Theme Analysis. In this series, we look at a total of 14 different themes, and in this video, we'll look at 5 different aspects of existentialism: thrownness, alienation, absurdity, nihilism, and radical freedom. What I do in each video is first identify the important aspects of the theme and apply them to the play, and then we dig deeply into the text of each play and pull out several quotes that prove the connection. If you find these videos useful, please like and subscribe, and if you make a donation, you get a complete set of the PDFs I use in this series. See the description for details. Hamlet, of course, is not technically an existential work. It was written a couple hundred years before existentialism was quote-unquote invented. Where it emerged from is the need to explain our place in the universe given the new scientific knowledge that we had been gaining since the Renaissance. So as science progressed, the need to explain the universe and our place in it without rational scientific evidence diminished. We used to rely on religions to explain who we are and our place in the universe. And it was very, very, very comforting. By the mid to late 1800s, Christianity had begun to lose its power to provide comfort, certainty, purpose, meaning, and moral guidance. There was a major, major crisis. And I think one of the most sensitive renderings of that crisis was in Dover Beach by Matthew Arnold in the mid to late 1800s. Listen to this. He says, "The sea of faith," that's religion, "was once too at the full, and it was like a girdle around earth, and it was very protective and comforting, lay like the folds of a bright girdle furled. But what's going on now I only hear its religion's melancholy long withdrawing roar, retreating. Religion is retreating to the breath of the night wind, down the vast edges drear and naked shingles of the world," the naked beaches of the world. Now look at those words. The vast edges drear and the naked beaches of the world. Do you see? The cosmos has been emptied of all of its comfort. And so where do we find meaning? Where do we find purpose and then comfort? Well, Matthew Arnold has an answer for it, and it's love, and that's Shakespeare's as well. Okay, so that was around the mid to late 1800s when that really started to kick off with Nietzsche's Death of God. But for hundreds and thousands of years before that, human beings still had been wrestling with these particular questions, the questions of our place in the universe. So existential angst, that anxiety that comes from the empty cosmos, existential angst and the questioning of our place in the universe is much, much older than Nietzsche's Death of God in the mid-1800s. Many of the thoughts, fears, anxieties central to existentialism had been explored in literature for thousands of years before that. Shakespeare, now, where does Shakespeare lie in all of this? Without explicitly denying the existence of God, he doesn't. He never really does. But Shakespeare does wrestle with many of the same doubts and themes, which has led some scholars to suggest that perhaps he was an atheist, because atheism was a thing back in those days, but it wasn't a very common thing. I don't think he was, but those doubts nag on everybody, even if you do have religions, a religion to provide comfort. Those questions are unavoidable at some point. We are our choices, so say the existentialists of the mid-20th century. Existence precedes essence. That was first posited by Heidegger and then taken up by Sartre, Jean-Paul Sartre, in the mid-20th century. If we are alone in the universe, completely alone in the universe, it's terrifying, yes, but it's incredibly ennobling because we have the opportunity to make ourselves. We are a blank slate. God didn't say, "Here you are, little boy, little girl, this is who you are, just follow your path like a good little boy and then you'll be in God's graces." There's none of that stuff. I'm mocking it there, but that's how the existentialist thinkers were looking at our position in the universe. The blank slate. Now, I don't believe the blank slate at all. These guys were writing at a time before a lot of psychological tests about DNA and character, twin studies. Do some research on twins. The characters of twins, the personalities of twins are very, 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 very similar. So that suggests that our DNA is who we are. We're not blank slates. We're born with a certain character. And then the universe acts on us, and then we act on ourselves at the same time. And that's where we are our choices. But this existence precedes essence needs to be unpacked. Our essence is who we are, and that comes second. In the old worldview, it was that your essence comes first. God made you who you are. That's who you are. Do you see? And then you exist. But the way these guys turned it around and says, no, there's no such thing as who you are. When you're first born, there is no who you are. You exist first, and then you become who you are with every decision that you make. Okay, and there's a lot of wisdom in that, a lot of truth in that as well, because we do interact with our environment maybe as much as our natures. 50-50, nature versus nurture. That's the old question, do you see? But these guys really overstate it when they say there is no human nature since there is no God to conceive it. Yeah, there's no God to conceive of your human nature, but there's DNA and there's evolution. There's evolution. If you believe in evolution, then you believe that you have a nature. Man is not only that which he conceives himself to be, but that which he wills himself to be. Now, that's partly true as well, and Dumbledore agrees, because Dumbledore says, it is our choices, Harry, that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities. Lovely statement for the masses, a lovely popularization of these existential ideas, and that's how philosophy percolates down into popular culture. There's a very big difference here. J.K. Rowling says our choices show who we are, which means reveals who we are, which suggests that there's something in there to reveal. So there is an essence that we are born with. That's my argument anyway. Okay, so if we are our choices, if our existence precedes essence, if we make ourselves, the choices we make, our existence through our choices, create who we are. That creates our essence. We must be free from all infantilizing societal, cultural, religious influences to make our own choices and thus create ourselves. That's how they saw it. They saw a trust in greater institutions as infantilizing. It's radical. It really is a radical freedom, and it's very ennobling. I am who I am because of who I am. And I make choices that direct my life and make me a good person, or I'll join Slytherin and be a bad choice. But it's my choice regardless, do you see? That's the John Milton satanic figure as well. So it's an old notion too. That's John Milton was writing back towards Shakespeare's age, do you see? So yeah, these ideas are not new. They're just reformulated and repackaged and added to, I suppose. We must take full responsibility for these choices. That's that radical freedom. Fine, you make a mistake, you join Slytherin, that's you, dude. Now, what are you going to do about it? You can change it if you want to, but you are that at that moment, so you live up to it. So freely made choices plus that responsibility equals authenticity, a mature, autonomous being, free from all influences of society, of institutions, and of religious notions, of religious dictates, do you see? Authenticity was very important for the existentialists. They were writing, too, in the mid-20th century, especially Sartre, the French writers, they conceived of this in light of the horrors of the Nazi invasion of Europe, do you see, and the importance of taking responsibility for the correct choice. You're going to join the Nazis, play it easy, just kind of get along, or are you going to rebel against that tyranny, do you see? So you can see why that radical freedom, that choice is really important for these guys, although they missed out on the DNA kind of thing. So in what sense, then, is Hamlet this kind of existential hero who creates himself through his own choices? I think there's an argument to be made here. It's not a bulletproof argument, but I think there's an argument to be made that he is that kind of existential hero. He is trying to make himself. He is trying to make his own choices and live authentically. That's what it is, because there's lots of, we're going to talk about that, there's a lot of inauthenticity in this play, and Shakespeare loathed it seems to me. And Hamlet is the only one. That's what makes him the hero. He's the only one who's trying to live authentically. So let's have a look. Hamlet nobly struggles to make his own choices. He tries to be himself. He doesn't believe the ghost. He doesn't just say, oh, here's a supernatural spirit, I'm going to follow him. No, he has to get proof for himself. He becomes a detective. He doesn't believe the ghost. He doesn't follow the herd in accepting King Claudius as the king. Okay, you be king for now, and then when you die, I'll be king too. I'll play the game because I like all this political stuff. No, he doesn't like all this political stuff. He doesn't accept his mother's perceived dishonorable behavior. Everyone else in the court seems to go along with it. Yeah, people are people. People are people. She had the hots for him, whatever. Do you see he refuses to go along with that? That might be a bad thing as well because he's kind of puritanical. He doesn't tolerate and he doesn't follow the inauthenticity of the court as represented in Polonius and Osric. This is Osric here. And that's illustrated Rosencrantz playing the courtly game, playing the inauthentic court game, and Hamlet hates it, like Shakespeare did, probably. Although Shakespeare was a really good player, he was a really good businessman. He got along in the world, so I think Hamlet was smart Shakespeare was smart that way. Anyway, Hamlet draws sharply contrasts the credulous, obedient Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, like I talked about, and Ophelia. He's not a puppet in a doll, a leaf floating down a river like Ophelia, or the gullible Laertes who falls into the clutches of Claudius. He tries to be his own man throughout the whole play, and he's going up against tremendous forces, his own weaknesses inside, against the great forces of the wasteland. But he's still struggling, and that's what we like about him. That's the hero. The hero is the one who rebels against the wasteland. I've talked about that in all of my videos. A nascent, authentic spirit resides in Hamlet. I do believe that's true, but it is overwhelmed by circumstances and by his own character flaws. So we see him here. I'll have grounds more relative than this. I'll have grounds more accurate, more proof than the mere ghost's words. The play's the thing we're in. I'll catch the conscience of the king. So he needs more than just the ghost's word for it. Claudius says to Laertes, "Will you be ruled by me, Laertes? Will you do my dirty work for me, Laertes?" And Laertes says, "Aye, my lord." So there's the contrast. There's the character foil. All characters in a play are character foils for the protagonist. And Laertes here, he is a follower. He follows Claudius, not so Hamlet. Hamlet follows only himself and his father, which is significant. Polonius, of course, is the most inauthentic person in this whole play. He's full of himself, and he's full of playing the court's games. "My honorable lord," he says, "I will most humbly take my leave of you." And here he goes with that the absurdist, the comedic, absurd reply. He says, "You cannot, sir, take from me anything that I will more willingly part with all, except my life, except my life, except my life." There's that double-edged humor, absurdist humor, do you see? "Fare you well, my lord," and then he mumbles to himself, "These tedious old fools." So he hates the inauthenticity of the court, which sets him up as the hero. As flawed as he is the hero, because at least he's not this guy. He is not that guy. This guy has zero freedom of choice. He's playing someone else's game. He's part of a machine. Like Guildenstern and Rosencrantz, he's a cog in the machine. That's Osric. Cogs in the machine. Even Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, their names, they sound like the name of a bank, do you see? Or an insurance firm, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Do you see? Do you see? That's not a mistake. It's like Severus Snape was chosen as a name for its sinister, snaky qualities. Shakespeare did that as well. They're not authentic people. They're not living as Johnny and Billy. They're living as Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, part of an institutional system, DC. Star Wars does that as well. Star Wars, Darth Vader with the mask. When Darth Vader puts that helmet on, he's a machine. He's part of a machine. The Death Star is a machine planet. There's no green on it. And Darth Vader is a machine, a cog in that machine. Do you see? We lose our individuality. Hamlet doesn't lose his individuality. As crazy as he is, as flawed as he is, he's got that spark of his own humanity in there, which makes him perhaps that existential hero. Claudius says, therefore prepare you. I, your commission, will forthright dispatch, and he to England shall along with you. So here he is, Claudius, sending these guys off to England with Hamlet to have Hamlet killed. And Guildenstern replies like a good robot. He snaps to attention and he says, we will ourselves provide. And then he starts to flatter. As a part of the machinery, as a courtier, his job is to flatter the powers that be, and he does that. He says, most holy and religious fear it is to keep those many, many bodies safe that live and feed upon your majesty. Yes, we are duty bound to protect you, O king, because so much relies on you. Now, that's not total nonsense, because the Great Chain of Being did stipulate that if the king was removed incorrectly, then the wasteland would emerge. But yeah, you see, they are part of the machine. Here's Hamlet mocking this poor guy. This actor in the 2009 version does a brilliant job of this. You got to go watch that. It's amazing. So Hamlet's teasing him and says, "Put on your hat. That's what it's for." And Osric says, "It's very, very hot, so I won't put on my hat." He says, "No, believe me, it's very cold," says Hamlet, teasing him. "It is indifferent, cold, my lord, indeed." And so he just parrots back everything that his superior says, do you see? Zero freedom of thought. He's got no personality whatsoever, do you see? But yet methinks it's very hot. It is very sultry and hot for my complexion. "Exceedingly, my lord, it is very, sultry. So he completely throws this guy off track with his nonsense. And that's that mocking of the inauthenticity. And again, that's very, very much in line with the existential thought of the importance in the face of Nazism, in the face of inauthenticity, in the face of the wasteland, be yourself. That's what the existentialists said. Now, but Hamlet, of course, ultimately is probably a failed hero. So let's have a look at that too. Despite striving for that authenticity, Hamlet ultimately fails the existentialist test. Most obviously, he's not entirely free from cultural, institutional, and herd strictures. As we've discussed, Christianity does hold him back from committing suicide. He is part of that Christian ethos. He is enslaved, really, to the heroic code of revenge. His father is a representative. I've talked in other videos. The father in the revenge video, go watch the revenge video. The father comes back from the dead, and he's part of this old heroic code of revenge, whereby he is honor bound to commit that revenge. And so he really doesn't have any choice. He's trapped in that. We get the sense that he doesn't really want to commit this revenge because he's not that kind of guy. He's a scholar and a philosopher, maybe a poet or an artist or an actor. He's not the avenging hero type, but he's stuck with that, and he does follow it. He doesn't say, "No, I'm a poet. I'm going to go back to Wittenberg and study." He doesn't say that. You see, he says, "Okay, I'll play your warrior heroic game." Do you see? So in that sense, not quite. Interestingly, he doesn't take full responsibility for his actions. He fudges rather than confronts his choices and his actions. He's not a killer, and I've argued before that the fact that he's not a killer is a good thing about him. All of the murder that he does is done at a distance. He kills Polonius through a curtain, so he doesn't have to look at it because he's that sensitive type. I've looked at that in other places. He's killed Rosencrantz and Guildenstern through distance to let England do it. Now, does that mean that he's a good guy? No, he still killed his childhood friends. It only reveals that he's sensitive, and as I mentioned, he does regret it. It's so complicated. Anyway, all of his murders, he kind of puts distance between those murders and himself somehow, so that in a way he's protected. He's psychically protected from the actions that he's doing, and that's not at all an existential position to hold. So here's Horatio kind of accusing him of murder without accusing him. He just kind of says, "Yeah, okay, so Rosencrantz and Guildenstern go to it, do they? Ugh, you've done it, have you, buddy?" Do you see? And Hamlet gets really defensive here. He says, "Why, man, they did make love to this employment. It's their own fault. They are not near my conscience." Really? I just demonstrated that there's not. His very last thought, his second last thought on earth was whether or not they got killed. So they are near his conscience. Their defeat doth by their own insinuation grow. Do you see here the defensiveness there? At the same time, there's this, "It wasn't my fault. England did it, not me." There's this psychic distance that he puts between himself in the same way that he distanced himself from killing Polonius through the curtain. We see a similar thing here at the very, very, very end. Laertes says, "I can do no more. The king's to blame. The glass is poisoned. The foils were poisoned." And then Hamlet says, "The point envenomed too, then venom to thy work." Now again, that's kind of minor, and we can quibble about this, but you've put it together with the fact that he kills Polonius through the curtain, he kills Guildenstern and Rosencrantz through England. And again, he's put some distance here. He's put some psychological distance between himself and the murder and the killing of the king. Perhaps it's not a murder. I don't know. How do you define it? It's the venom that did it, do you see? It's not me. Venom, do thy work. I'm not doing it. Whereas a true existential hero would say, "It's me. Boom. I did this." He doesn't say that. He doesn't make that declaration. In another sense, he fails to choose. He lets circumstances. He's a failed existential hero in that he does fail to make those ultimate choices, as we've kind of seen here. He lets circumstances force himself to act. If he was a true existential hero in the mid-20th century way, he would see okay, I am me. I'm making a decision to get revenge. It's my decision. I see the universe is unjust, and I'm going to get this revenge. He sees Claudius when he's praying. He kills him. Boom. That's it. It's the end of the story. That's not how Hamlet operates, though. He waffles. He floats. He lets circumstances direct him until the very, very end, where he has no choice, and then he's forced to act. And that's when he kills. He only kills Claudius finally when he has no choice, because he's going to die within 30 seconds or something like that, so he has to do it. So in that sense, that he is that failed existential hero. And we see it again here. We see a passive acceptance of his fate, Now, an existentialist would have none of that. They would not accept their fate at all. And he says here, we've seen this quote already, there is a special providence in the fall of a sparrow. And the providence is maybe ambiguous. He doesn't say there is God in the fall of a sparrow. He doesn't say that directly. His providence may have just this existentialist randomness, a fate-ish kind of thing about it, but there is a passivity here that is not that would not be required of an existential hero. There's providence in the fall of a sparrow. Lovely line. If it be not now, if my death be not now, it is to come. If it is not now, if it be not now, it will be now. Sorry, if it is not to come, it will be now. If it be not now, yet it will come. The readiness is all. Since no man of aught he leaves knows, then what is it to leave betimes? Let be. Let fate handle it, is what he says. It's kind of lovely. Maybe it's an existential shrug and says this is what life is, and so we have to just accept it and bear our choices. But it's not defiant at all. It's weak rather than defiant. And the mid-20th century existentialists were much more defiant than that. Again, because they were fighting against real evil in the world. And Hamlet is he's fighting against real evil in the world, but he doesn't have the character to stand up to it. Okay, so that was Existentialism, Thrownness, Alienation, Absurdity, Nihilism, and Radical Freedom. I hope you found these videos useful, and if you did, please like and subscribe, and come back for my next video. We'll talk about the Dark Triad. I hope you found these videos useful, and if you did, please like and subscribe, and pick up a copy of your PDFs if you need them. Thanks for watching.